right, guys, we're going to go over the house rules for the podcast studio. You would think this would be a silly waste of time because you can all read the rules as they're written, but you would be so wrong. People cannot read rules and go by them. So we're going to say them out loud and make sure we're both on the same page. The first page of rules is sort of general behavior rules. Shouldn't be anything too surprising. Only rule number 1, there's only 4 people allowed in the studio at a time. If there is some very compelling reason why you need to have more than 4 people, you have scored an interview with the Beatles and Ringo, Paul, George, and John are going to put you over your limit. Okay, come talk to me. If you just show up that day, the answer will be no. But, and you will notice that I chose the example of somebody very, very famous and very, very dead. There has to be a really good reason why you need to have more than 4 people in there. That room is tight, and we've only got 4 mics set up. I mean, there's reasons for it. Only 4 people in there unless, you have scored an interview with somebody that's super, super compelling. Rule number 2, the camera must be on and a staff member must be monitoring it. Meaning that if I'm absent and you were supposed to come in, the sub probably can't monitor. You would have to have a teacher willing to monitor you. The camera is on. You are on camera. The camera is there. I can turn up the volume. I can see you. I can hear you. There is no expectation of privacy when you're in the podcast studio. You're at school. You're being supervised. Just know that going in. You are on candid camera. Rule number 3. You must fill out the Google form and sign up for the time slot that you want. If you just show up and ask if you can use the studio, I'm going to give you the link to the Google form. This is my record of what you're supposed to be doing. This is my record of who is supposed to be in the room. This is where I'm going to check that the people in the room have all completed the training. It is not optional. You have to fill out the Google form in order to use the podcast studio. Rule number 4 is no food or drink in the studio. Should be self-explanatory. Expensive electronics and water, not a good combination. All right, the next slide of rules is a little more CSAS studio specific stuff. Everyone in the group must have completed this training. In order to use the podcast studio, we're trusting you to go into a room with the door closed. That means we are going to be very sure of what the behavioral expectations are. Everybody in the room has taken this Google course. I've got you on a spreadsheet. I'll know that you're doing. If you are interviewing somebody from off campus on your podcast, we must have their name at least a week ahead of time. We have to do some pretty serious checks on them in order to have them in the building. This is not from us. This is not from me. It is not from our principals. This is from the county. We can't have people in here who we haven't vetted to make sure they're safe. So get their names to me at least a week ahead of time if you're interviewing somebody who is not a CSAS student. There are 3 separate podcast studio trainings. The first one is this one. It's about about the rules. The second one is about using the equipment. At least one member of your group has to have completed that training as well, because that is the person who will operate the board. The only person who can touch the board are people who have completed the trainings. If we see somebody on the board who has not completed the training, you have forfeited your permission to be in the room. The third training is editing software and planning for a podcast. The reason being that the difference between a professional YouTube video, a professional podcast, and an amateur one is often the planning that goes in beforehand and the editing that happens afterwards. So in order to do a personal interest project, something that is not a school assignment, you must have completed all 3 trainings. In order to publish your work publicly, Somebody in your group must have completed all 3 trainings and edited your work when you're done. Like personal interest, I'm checking my script. Personal interest projects require you to have completed all 3 trainings. Rule number 3, this is a school. And so school assignments will always take precedence over personal interest projects. If you had signed up to work on your own personal podcast on Thursday afternoon and a teacher has a class needing to record podcasts that day, you will get bumped. This is a school, that is our primary function. So just know that that is a possibility. The last rule on that page is one that has a little bit of discussion. Personal interest projects completed at the CSAS studio must comply with the rules and the behavior expectations we have for our students and staff. And they must be reviewed before publication. So, what this means when the rubber meets the road: no cussing, no hate speech, no promotion of illegal activities. If you want to do a podcast that promotes vaping, which is not illegal for adults but is for students at this school, then if you want to do that, is not an approved school assignment. If you want to use the language, if you want more freedom of language, I suggest you go record at the public library downtown. If it is a gray area and a personal interest project, I'm probably going to say no, because we want to be able to keep the studio and to have it functional and not end up with the county telling us we can't do this anymore. So those are the rules. There shouldn't be anything too shocking. If you want to discuss any of them with me, please come by. Tell me about your concerns. I am not infallible. Totally willing to listen. Want to be on the same page about what's going to happen if you break the rules. The first violation means you have to complete this rules training again. The second violation means that you lose studio privileges for 2 weeks and you must complete the training again. The third violation means you are banned for the rest of the school year, and we will try again next year when you will have to complete the training again. Repeated violations, like if you've been banned several years in a row, we will discuss with administration, because you probably aren't getting your privileges back. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's it. The rules are pretty basic. I think everybody should be fine with them. Have a good day, guys.